Okay, hello grade 10s. This is the last lesson of the week, and it is nothing new. It is just combining the last couple of lessons together. So if you've been able to keep up with what's going on so far, today should be a nice easy day. It should be a nice review day. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we are asked to determine the measure of angle B. This is our opening question. I would love, as always, if you could pause and try this. So here's SOHCAHTOA. You really should remember that. Determine the measure of angle B. This is angle B. So if this is angle B, this is our opposite. This is our hypotenuse. We're dealing with O and H, which means sine. So sine B equals 7.3 divided by 8.6. And then on the calculator, I do 7.3 divided by 8.6 equals, and then shift sine because I'm finding an angle. So B is approximately 50.1 degrees, or 50 degrees if you're doing no decimal places. All right, next up, measure of angle B. So the sum of the angles in any triangle is always, this isn't in your note, but you might want to make a little note about this. It's always 180 degrees. Okay, so if this is 90, that's 24. 180 minus 90 minus 24 is 66 degrees. The other thing you could do is just do 90 minus the other acute angle, because these two will add to 90, because this one is 90. All right, determine the measure of side Z. Uh-oh, we don't have any angles. Remember, in a right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse of the triangle. So let's try this out. Well, we're going to have here, this is x, this is y, and this is z. So our Pythagorean theorem would be x squared plus y squared equals z squared. Right, because it's the two short sides and then the long side on the other side. And then we plug in, we get 9.2 squared plus 17.2 squared equals z squared. We go to the calculator, 9.2 squared plus 17.2 squared is 295.84. So z squared is 295.84. And then to get z, we square root it. So where's my square root button? What is happening? I can't find it. Oh, I have to do second function. Square root 17.2. So z equals, wait, 17.2, that can't be right. Oh, yeah, that's not right. All right, so let's try this again. So 9.2 squared plus 17.2 squared equals, oh, there we go. I didn't hit equals, so the thing I wrote was just 17 squared. Sorry, I don't use this calculator very often. So it's actually 380.48. And then we take the square root of that, and we get 19.5 centimeters. Now, I do want to mention how I knew that answer was wrong. I'm looking for the hypotenuse, so it's got to be longer than both of these. But I got 17.2, which was the same, so I knew right away there was a mistake, and then I was able to figure out the mistake. So I think that's a good lesson in and of itself. Always look at your answer. If it doesn't make sense, it's probably not right. All right, next one. Last Pythagorean theorem before we get into today's stuff. This would be x, this would be y, and this would be z. Now you might remember from earlier in the course, if we're using the Pythagorean theorem to find a short side, then we do y squared equals z squared, the long side, minus the other short side. So remember, if we're looking for not the hypotenuse, we subtract. So this is going to be 10.5 squared minus 4.2 squared. So here we go. So 10.5 squared minus 4.2 squared equals 92.61. So y squared equals 92.61. And to find y, I square root it, and I get 9.6. So y is approximately 9.6 centimeters. Now let's see if that makes sense. This side should be shorter than the hypotenuse, and it is. So this makes sense. All right, here's today's lesson. To solve a triangle means to determine the lengths of all the sides and the measures of all the angles. And what you're going to find today is that there are a ton of different ways to do any of these problems. So you're going to have a lot of choice, and you're just going to do whatever makes the most sense to you. I'm going to show you the way that I do it, but again, the choice is yours. Okay, so here are the tools that we have. To find sides, we have the Pythagorean Theorem, and we have sine, and cos, and tan. And to find angles from yesterday, we have inverse sine, inverse cos, inverse tan, and add to 180. So these are the tools that you have. Pythagorean Theorem and add to 180 you knew already from elementary school or grade 9. And sine, cos, and tan, and inverse sine, cos, and tan you learned over the last couple of days. And again, the order you do it is up to you. So here we go. Solve the triangle. So we need to find every missing piece of information. So first of all, the easy part here is angle E. Right? Because angle E, we have two of the angles, so it's just going to be 90 minus 34. Or remember, you could do 180 minus 90 minus 34. So 90 minus 34 is 56 degrees. And there's a mark. Okay, so we also need to find side D, and we need to find side E. Now, to make it simple, you could only look at the information that you were given in blue. But I am going to mention that you could do this a bunch of different ways. So let's just use the blue information to find side D. Okay? If we were going to use the blue information, this is our reference angle. This is the opposite. This is the hypotenuse. We don't care about the adjacent because we're looking for side D, so we don't care about side E. We don't know what it is. So if we're dealing with the opposite and the hypotenuse, it's going to be sine. So sine 34 degrees equals D over 15.8. And all that's left here is to multiply both sides by 15.8. These cancel, and D equals 15.8 times 34 sine equals 8.8. So D equals approximately 8.8 centimeters. Now, to find side E, which I'm going to do next, we could just use the Pythagorean Theorem, right? 15.8 squared minus 8.8 squared, take the square root, and it'll look like this. 15.8 squared, oh, no, sorry, that was square root. 15.8 squared minus 8.8 squared equals, and then we take the square root, and we're going to get 13.1. But instead, I'm going to use trigonometry. I don't care how you do it. Do it however you want. So this is still our reference angle. Now we're looking for the adjacent, and we still have the hypotenuse. So A and H is cos. So cos 34 degrees equals E over 15.8. And just like before, we multiply by 15.8 because the variable's on the top. Remember, if the variable was on the bottom, we'd divide. And hopefully we're going to get 13.1 or so. So 15.8 times 34 cos equals 13.1. Approximately 13.1 centimeters. Now, is that what I had before? Let me check. So before I had 15.8 squared minus 8.8 squared equals square root 13.1. Yeah, so the decimals are off a bit, but you can see as long as we use one of these methods, we're going to get the right answer. Now, once you got D, you could use that, but it's rounded, so I wouldn't. But we also could have used 56 is our angle. And then this would be opposite, and this would be adjacent. So there's a lot of different options here. Honestly, you just do whatever comes to mind first, or whatever you think is shortest. And even if you don't, you're still going to get the right answers, so it doesn't really matter. All right, solve the triangle. So first, let's find angle A. You could find side B first by doing the Pythagorean Theorem, and that would make sense. There's no problem doing that. If we're going to find angle A, this is the opposite. This is the hypotenuse. O and H is sine, so sine A equals 5.1 over 11.1. And then on the calculator, 5.1. We're finding an angle, so we have to use the inverse button. So second sine, 27 degrees. So A is approximately 27 degrees. To find angle B, so B is just going to be 90 minus 27, and B is going to be approximately 63 degrees. And just like that, we found 2 out of the 3 things, and now all that's left to find is side B. So I'm going to use the Pythagorean Theorem here, because why not? So B squared, I'm finding a short side, so I do the hypotenuse squared minus the other side squared. So 11.1 squared minus 5.1 squared equals 97.2. So B is going to be approximately 9.9. And if you look, centimeters, and if you look at the diagram, that makes sense. Cool. That's it. Let me go through your homework here. So you have an angle, you can easily find that angle, find the 2 sides. You have 2 sides, so you can find the third side, Pythagorean Theorem if you want, and find the angles with SOHCAHTOA. Or find one angle and then subtract. You got an angle and a side, so you're good to go. 2 sides. Honestly, it's all the same. So you've got 4 practice questions. I will post the solutions later on today. Okay, folks, if you have any questions, if this is going too fast, you can slow down the playback speed. You could always look up someone else like solving right triangles using trigonometry if you don't like mine. Or better yet, reach out. Send me an email. I'll set up a Google Meet. I'll email. I'll call you on the phone and try to help you through it. And especially if you're having trouble with your calculator, send me a picture of your calculator and I will try to help you figure out how to do all this stuff on it. And I'm sure we can work through it. I've seen a lot of different calculators. All right, folks, good luck and thanks for watching.